If you walk past 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue this morning, you don't see power. You see a warning sign. Where the East Wing once stood, there is now a mud-filled crater. Yellow cranes loom over the White House like frozen scavengers. Safety fencing cuts across what used to be one of the most recognizable symbols of American continuity. And for the first time in months, the noise has stopped. At 8 a.m. today, all construction on President Trump's $400 million Grand Ballroom was ordered to an immediate and indefinite halt. No slowdown, no pause for review, a full stop. For a presidency obsessed with spectacle, the silence is devastating. This was never just a renovation. It was a monument. Trump's attempt to physically rewrite the White House in his own image. Gold leaf grandeur, soaring ceilings, a palace-scale ballroom designed not for governance, but for legacy. He called it a gift to the nation. Preservationists called it vandalism. Today, a federal judge called it unlawful. The ruling didn't arrive, quietly. It landed as a 40-page injunction that reads less like a procedural order and more like a rebuke. The judge accused the administration of deception, recklessness, and treating public land as if it were a private development law. The message was unmistakable. The presidency does not confer ownership. Trump woke up expecting to see concrete poured. Instead, he saw a federal marshal taping a cease and desist order to a White House construction fence. What makes this moment uniquely damaging is not just the legal defeat. It's the image. The White House is no longer a seat of authority in this story. It is an exposed construction site, a half-destroyed structure frozen in time, visible to every visiting dignitary, every television camera, every American watching from home. Politics is built on symbols, and this one is unforgiving. A president who campaigned as a builder is now living inside a project he cannot finish. The ballroom meant to project dominance has become a physical reminder of overreach. This is the visual that will follow him for the rest of his term. Cranes that don't move, dirt that doesn't disappear, and a hole in the ground where certainty used to be. And that hole is about to get much deeper. To understand how the White House ended up as a stalled construction site, you have to understand the bet Trump made and why it failed. Fresh off his inauguration, the president moved with the confidence of someone who believed the rules no longer applied to him. The East Wing, he argued, was outdated, uninspiring, unworthy of the image he wanted to project. In private, he dismissed it as small, ugly, even embarrassing. In its place, he envisioned something monumental, a grand ballroom that would rival European palaces and permanently stamp his name onto American history. The price tag was staggering $400 million, but Trump insisted it wouldn't matter. Taxpayers, he promised, would never pay a dime. A network of wealthy private donors, loyal patriots from his billionaire circle, would cover the entire cost. The money, he claimed, was already secured. That claim became the foundation of everything that followed. Under normal circumstances, demolishing part of the White House would trigger years of review, preservation hearings, and congressional oversight. The building is not just a residence, it is a protected national landmark. But Trump's administration pushed forward using a familiar tactic: urgency and exception. The project was framed as necessary, transformative, and time-sensitive. Critics were brushed aside as obstructionists, clinging to the past. Preservation groups sued immediately, arguing that the White House belongs to the public, not the occupant. Their case was simple. You cannot tear down a historic structure on a promise. You need funding in the bank and approvals in hand. Trump's team responded with a gamble. They played the national security card. The administration claimed the ballroom would include a state-of-the-art underground facility to replace aging security infrastructure. Faced with that assertion and bound by secrecy, the court allowed demolition to proceed, but under strict conditions. The hole could be dug, the structure could come down, but no construction could begin until two things were finalized: full funding secured and final designs approved. Trump ignored the warning. He demolished first, assuming the money and permits would follow. It was a classic Trump move. Act boldly, pressure later, and force everyone else to adapt to the new reality. The East Wing fell quickly. Wrecking balls hit historic walls. Dust settled over the grounds. The visual shock was real. But the plan depended on one thing: never failing. The money had to show up, and it didn't. The entire Grand Ballroom project rested on a single assertion that $400 million in private funding was already lined up, waiting to be transferred the moment paperwork cleared. That claim is now collapsing under judicial scrutiny. What the court uncovered was not a war chest, but a mirage. In sealed filings submitted late last week, the administration quietly admitted what it had publicly denied for months. The money was never actually there. The so-called Ballroom Fund was built on non-binding pledges, verbal commitments from hedge fund managers, real estate tycoons, and casino magnates who moved in Trump's orbit. No escrow account, no guaranteed transfers, just promises, conditioned on stability, prestige, and political momentum. Then the floor dropped out. The global financial shock that began with the Japan bond crash didn't just rattle markets, it froze donors in place. Margin calls rippled through portfolios. Liquidity evaporated. Suddenly, writing 9F figure checks for a politically radioactive vanity project stopped looking patriotic and started looking reckless. When the Treasury Department finally called for the cash, the donors vanished. One major backer formally withdrew within hours, citing market volatility and fiduciary duty. Others simply stopped returning calls. For the judge, this was the moment the case transformed. What had been framed as a delayed transfer was now exposed as something far more serious: demolition executed on the strength of phantom capital. The language in the ruling is brutal. The court accused the administration of a bait and switch, of tearing down a historic federal structure based on assurances that do not presently exist and may never exist. The White House, the judge wrote, cannot be turned into an abandoned construction site fueled by speculation and broken promises, and the consequences are immediate. All work is halted. The General Services Administration has been ordered to prepare a remediation plan, legal code, for an unthinkable possibility. If funding is not secured within 30 days, the site must be restored. Not completed, restored, dirt returned, ground leveled, the damage undone as best as possible. For a president who measures success in square footage and spectacle, this is humiliation at a structural level. The project meant to symbolize dominance is now a case study in insolvency. Trump isn't just facing a stop ballroom. He's facing a public accounting of how power was exercised on nothing more than trust and bravado. In the end, markets did what courts alone could not. They exposed the gap between promises and reality and left the White House standing in the middle of it. For months, the administration hid behind a single powerful phrase: national security. It was the shield used to justify demolition, silence critics, and rush the project past safeguards that would have stopped it cold under any other presidency. In court this week, that shield shattered. As part of the emergency hearing, the judge unsealed a classified report the White House had fought to keep buried, a technical assessment from the Secret Service itself. What it revealed was devastating. The agency tasked with protecting the president had opposed the project from the beginning. According to the report, the massive open construction pit on the east side of the complex created severe vulnerabilities. The exposed foundations increased risks of surveillance, tunneling, and drone-based threats. The proposed glass-heavy ballroom design was described as nearly impossible to secure a structure that amplified rather than reduced danger. In blunt terms, the Secret Service concluded that the project made the White House less safe. This finding obliterated the administration's core legal argument. The ballroom was never a security necessity. It was a vanity structure wrapped in classified language to bypass preservation law. And that distinction matters. Under federal statutes protecting historic sites, necessity can justify disruption. Vanity cannot. The judge did not mince words. He accused the administration of invoking national security as a pretext of weaponizing secrecy to bulldoze oversight. Once that claim collapsed, so did the legal foundation of the entire project, and the implications reached far beyond a single injunction. By exposing the deception, the court stripped the White House of its ability to fast-track future renovations. Every claim, every request, every alteration will now be viewed through a lens of distrust. The presidency has lost the benefit of the doubt. More dangerously, the ruling invites scrutiny into how the original representations were made. If officials submitted sworn statements claiming the project enhanced security when internal reports said the opposite, the case escalates from administrative failure to potential criminal exposure. This is the pivot point of the scandal. The ballroom is no longer just unfunded, it is unlawful by design. What was sold as protection is now officially documented as risk. And once a court brands a presidential initiative as dishonest, the damage doesn't stop at construction. It seeps into every claim the administration makes thereafter. The lie wasn't cosmetic. It was structural. Politics is built on images, and this image is merciless. From the windows of the residence, the president now looks out over a stalled construction site. Mounds of dirt, idle cranes, orange fencing cutting through the grounds. What was meant to be a showcase of power has become a daily reminder of overreach. The White House, long staged as a symbol of continuity and command, now resembles an abandoned development project. For a president obsessed with aesthetics, the damage is profound. Every visiting delegation sees it. Every television stand-up includes it. When foreign leaders arrive, their motorcades pass the Trump crater before reaching the front door. No speech can erase the visual contradiction. A leader who promised to build is surrounded by what he destroyed. The contrast with Trump's core political brand could not be sharper. He campaigned as the master builder, someone who finished projects ahead of schedule and under budget. The ballroom is behind schedule, massively over budget, unfunded, and now illegal. It isn't just unfinished, it is indefensible. Public reaction has turned quickly and brutally. Focus groups don't talk about injunctions or preservation statutes. They ask simpler questions. Why is there a $400 million ballroom being built while gas prices are soaring? Why does the president care more about hosting galas than stabilizing household costs? The image feeds a narrative that has long shadowed Trump. Luxury at the top, chaos below. Even within his own party, the frustration is surfacing. Republican lawmakers are being forced to defend the indefensible on television. They are asked to explain why a historic wing was demolished without secured funding. Why national security was invoked and then contradicted. Why the White House looks like a strip mine. Behind closed doors, the anger is sharper. This isn't ideological disagreement, it's political malpractice. The project handed critics a physical metaphor they couldn't have scripted better. A presidency digging itself into a hole, then running out of money to climb back out. What makes the optics lethal is their permanence. Scandals fade, headlines move on. But this sits there day after day, impossible to spin. The cranes don't argue back. The dirt doesn't issue press releases. It simply stays. The judge gave the White House 30 days. Find the money or undo the damage. On paper, that sounds like a choice. In reality, it is an ultimatum with no viable escape. Every path forward is blocked by law, politics, or humiliation. The administration cannot divert existing federal funds. The ruling explicitly forbids using appropriated money without congressional approval. And with polls collapsing and investigations looming, Congress is not opening the vault. The border wall playbook won't work here. The judge anticipated it. Private donors remain the only theoretical option, but the donor class has already fled. Writing a 9-figure check now would mean attaching one's name to a legal disaster, a project under judicial supervision, and a presidency visibly in decline. No rational financier steps into that storm. Foreign money would be even worse. A Saudi ballroom or any foreign-funded White House expansion would trigger an immediate constitutional crisis. The emoluments clause exists for precisely this scenario. The scandal would be instant, bipartisan, and likely fatal. The door is closed, which leaves the most humiliating outcome of all. If the money does not appear, the General Services Administration will hire contractors to reverse the project. The hole will be filled, the ground levelled, temporary walls restored, grass replanted where history once stood. The East Wing will not be rebuilt. It will simply be erased. For a man obsessed with physical legacy, this is the nightmare scenario. Trump wanted to leave behind a monument. Instead, he may leave behind fresh sod and a cautionary plaque in legal textbooks. The symbolism is devastating. The East Wing stood for decades as the social and ceremonial heart of the White House. By destroying it without a plan, the administration severed that limb of the presidency. By failing to replace it, they confirmed the core charge leveled by critics from the beginning: destruction without stewardship. This is not just about a building. It is about authority. A president who cannot secure funding, cannot convince allies, cannot persuade courts, and cannot complete his own signature project is exposed in the most unforgiving way possible. The illusion of control collapses when even concrete refuses to cooperate. The builder president wanted a palace. He got a pit, and in that pit sits the clearest, most physical proof yet that this presidency has run out of road and out of ground to stand